guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Clay. But before we dive into the video itself, first a word from this video's sponsor. Hi friends! So this video is sponsored in part by Wondrium, which has recently gone through a rebrand from the Great Courses Plus, which has of course been a longtime sponsor on my channel, so I'm so thrilled to be partnering with them again today, which if you're not familiar, they specialize in creating really incredible and educational lecture-based series across a variety of different genres and topics. I personally fell in love with their history section. They have so many in-depth series that I just love to tune into all of the time. And they're all taught by different experts within the field, from accredited universities to other really important institutions like the Smithsonian. Such a great way to get that lecture vibe and continue learning without actually having to be enrolled into a university or go to class or turn in homework or write an essay, all of those things. I was a history major in school, so I just love all of the different resources they have on their site. I've taken classes on medieval women, I've taken classes on Rome and ancient Greece. I've just recently started a new lecture series that they have about Charlemagne, which so far I'm finding to be so fascinating. But with the rebrand of Wondrium, they've now expanded their content even further. It's bigger and better than it was even before. Now they have both long form and short form content to consume, and their actual genres that you're able to select from is continuing to expand. They have over 6,000 hours of content to tune into, which is just obviously, I've already spoken to the historical lecture component of their platform, which I love. You can literally tune in and learn anything from mathematics to science. They have classes on painting, they have classes on language, they have classes on baking and grammar. There's truly no limit on the types of things that you can check out and learn on this platform, and it's also formulated in a way that works best for your schedule. I love the lectures too because I can actually stream them from my smart TV, so I feel like I'm sitting down, I'm like taking notes and just trying to take it all in. In a nutshell, Wondrium is a place for minds that wonder, because it's truly no end for the different things that you could learn from their platform. I of course have an offer code for you guys, which would give you a free trial. If you go to wondrium.com/peruse project, you're able to access it. Again, big shout out to Wondrium for partnering with me for this video, but let's jump back in and chat about Clay's TBR. So Clay is in today's video because we are attempting a TBR once again. Clay is coming to the new year wanting to do what?
2022 TBR, read more books.
We have definitely given Clay some TBRs in the past that have not gone so well, but you know, new year, new Clay. Clay also has a new job, which does allow him a lot more free time, so one of his goals, like many of us in this world, is to get more books. Get more books read for the year 2022. And I'm here to support. His general request was he wants to read a total of 8 books this year. He wanted me to pick 4 of those books just based on what I think he might like, and then he wanted to pick 4 books himself based off, you know, my bookshelves, just perusing, seeing what's up. So any thoughts and feelings before we dive into the books themselves?
Yeah.
You want me to read?
So, a couple things I want to read is a couple fantasy books in there, character-led books. I do like some thriller, mystery, political drama, historical fiction is something I really enjoy. And then one of the books I picked out for myself is a book in a series that is the final to a trilogy that I have really liked and been wanting to wrap up. Overall, just really excited to get reading again. It's something I've really enjoyed, and now that I have a bit more free time, happy to make it more part of my routine. So again, we have 8 books. I'm really hopeful we'll have a wrap-up this time around. And maybe you can even feature in a reading vlog, you know? Talking about one of the books you're reading. Let's see.
New year, new Clay, everyone.
No promises.
So I think we're gonna rotate. We'll go back and forth based off of the books. And the first book I picked out for Clay that I think he'll love, based on a few factors, and that is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is one of my all-time favorite books. I really love his writing. It's also a World War II historical fiction book, and Clay, like many men, just love World War II, really fascinated by it, so I just feel like the overall topic of this will be really interesting to you. But there's also a particular reason why I picked this out, and that is actually the writing style. So this is a book that alternates between 2 primary perspectives, and it's told in kind of like a vignette style. So there's like these short, choppy chapters of sort of isolated moments in time, and you kind of see these sort of lives of these 2 characters kind of come crashing together. And I feel like you enjoy that kind of style writing. You really liked it, particularly when you read Station 11. So I thought not only the setting of this, the writing quality of this, but just kind of the structure of this book might be something that would be something you would really like. And also because the chapters are really short, I also feel like it kind of makes it feel like a quick read, which I was also kind of thinking in mind, like what would be a good book to get you back into reading? I thought this would be a good option.
I'm excited to read this book. Reagan has been talking about it for years. She's definitely right. I really love historical fiction, especially World War II focus fiction. I'm basic that way. Watched probably too much History Channel as a kid, and really excited reading this book. And I like the idea of two different characters kind of intertwining over time, probably becoming leading to one single point, and that seems like something I'm really interested in.
All right, one book down. Now shifting into Clay's first pick for himself.
So the first book that I picked for myself is The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen. The reason why I picked this book is it is a Pulitzer Prize winning book about a man who lives in Vietnam, I believe around the Vietnam War, timing of the Vietnam War. He comes to America and he's kind of a double agent spy, reporting back to his communist overseers back home. And this is actually a book I picked out for Reagan a couple months back for a video where I picked out a TBR for her. I'm really interested to read it. It's supposed to be really fantastic and just will be combining a lot of elements I like. It's got elements of suspense and thriller, but also I think there's going to be some like community, potentially romance, or maybe just like brotherly love, family relationships, and I think it'd be a really great book to start out with.
Yeah. No, this book sounds really good. I think it sounds like an interesting like push and pull for the main character between like doing their duty for their country, but also becoming more enmeshed in a culture that they find themselves surrounded in. Obviously won the Pulitzer. I want to read this too, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts, and I also feel like it will propel me to kind of move it higher up on my TBR. So, good pick. I'm excited about this. I want to know what you think. Next book I picked for Clay is also one of my favorites, obviously, and that is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Clay mentioned to me that he wanted to read fantasy. Nothing too intense, still kind of character focused, but easier to read, not a huge epic, not a 1,000-page pickup, basically. And I thought Senlin Ascends would be a good choice for you. I also think you'll like this book because it is whimsical, and he loves Wes Anderson movies, and this kind of has like a bizarre atmosphere kind of setting to it as well that I think you might appreciate because of that. But this basically follows our main character Senlin, and this is set in a fantasy world where there's this giant tower called the Tower of Babel. It's full of like thousands of floors, thousands of people, and it's also kind of a mystery. At the beginning of book one, Senlin travels to the Tower of Babel with his new wife. He's always dreamed of traveling this tower, but right when they arrive, they get separated, and the entire series is him basically traversing this very treacherous place and trying to find his wife again, and it becomes incredibly politically complicated. Like all the floors are mesmerizing and terrifying, and like all of this bizarre stuff kind of unravels from there. The writing is really gripping, and again, it kind of has that bizarre element to it that I feel like makes it a really unique and also literary fiction leading fantasy read. I love it. I'm reading the third book literally as we speak.
That sounds really awesome. There's a couple movies that I love that kind of have, in a very, very general sense, a similar concept. One called The Raid Redemption, one called Judge Dredd, where someone's going up a tower, going through a bunch of different trials and tribulations as they're going through it, and ultimately reaching one end. And I'm not sure if this book's about it, but I love stories that take place over a very short period of time in one place.
Oh, it actually...
A long time?
Well, I don't even really want to say.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting what this book does though, and I feel like this sort of specific setting of just going on this journey, it just keeps expanding. It's a really fascinating book.
I always thought it was Tower of Babel.
I don't know how to say it.
I think it's Babel.
Is it Babel?
I think it's Babel.
Is not Babel?
I think so.
Dang. Dyslexia got me again.
The next book I picked out is Rules of Civility by Amor Towle.
You can keep going. I'm just helping you with the booktube part.
And the reason why I'm interested in this book, it's a book about a woman in the 1930s meets a banker in New York City, and they go on kind of a quest over a year of where she's kind of rising up in the upper echelons of high society in New York in the 30s.
In the 30s?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Reagan's told me this guy writes really character-led books, something I'm really interested in. Sometimes just conversations, things like that, are the best parts of books. I'm really excited to read it. Obviously, Reagan and I lived in New York. I love anything that has to do with New York. Really interested in reading the stories, hearing people go through town, and probably at points going, oh, I've been in that area before.
Yeah. This is funny because Immortals is one of the top authors I also hope to get to this year, but I have A Gentleman in Moscow on the top of my personal list, which I just think it shows that based on your own personal interest, like, will make you steer to like different novels. Like, it makes sense that you would pick this book up because you do love New York and you love this particular time period, and then A Gentleman in Moscow is set during the Russian Revolution. So like, that is more of my like personal interest, so I just think it's interesting. Like, but I'm really curious to see what you think of him. I'm also really looking forward to picking up a book by this author this year, so that could be really fun. And I own a lot of this author's books, so if you like it, you've got more on the shelf. Don't worry, book buying problem is something that I constantly have an issue with. All right, book number 3, book number 4. We're halfway through.
You don't have a book buying problem, you have a book storing problem.
That's a positive way to look at it, Clay. Thank you. All right, the next book that I have for you, I hope you read it soon because I love this series so much, and I just think you're gonna love it, and they're adapting it into a TV show, and I just feel like this could be a good moment for you, and that's Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is the first book to the Greenbone Saga. It's just a trilogy. But this is an Asian-inspired urban fantasy story. It's basically set on the fictional island of Kekon. Here, there's a substance called jade that certain people can wear and utilize, and it basically makes you stronger or faster. And the production and the distribution of jade is completely controlled primarily by 2 crime families. And within this story, you basically follow a multitude of different perspectives. I shouldn't say a multitude, a few perspectives of members of one crime family. And basically, the Cold War that has existed is beginning to heat up, and like a lot of stuff is beginning to unfold. This is full of like family dynamics and drama, really interesting like crime family dynamics, both on like the political end, the economic end, the globalization end, but then like the true street fighting, like turf war kind of vibe. It has really great combat, really great characters, and it's also kind of an interesting winding path. Like, a lot of time is spent kind of making things really satisfying too. I don't know. This is one of my favorite fantasy series in the world, and I also feel like it's a good place to start if you don't read a lot of like epic fantasy. I still think it's like very epic, but also very approachable.
That's really interesting. I've definitely heard Reagan talk about this book a lot. With it being made into a TV show, but it's always really fun to see how it's visualized by somebody else in real life. And the overall world sounds really interesting. The heating up Cold War sounds cool. It's always fun when there's like really good world building with magic and like supernatural components in a world, because sometimes in just one book you can't explore all like the interesting concepts.
Yeah, and I would say this has like magic, especially in the combat, but it's really not like super dense on like the magic. Like, the magic literally is they're good at hand-to-hand combat and fighting, and there's some components of like that jade kind of heightens their ability, but a lot of it is much more about like what you would imagine the conflict would exist between kind of gang crime families. That's more center stage in this book series.
Nice.
I'm trapping you into another series.
The next book I picked out for myself is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. It's the third in the Arc of the Scythe series. I'm really excited. It's a lot of fun. The concept in this world is that people do not die anymore. It's like years and years in the future, but we still have to cull down the population. So there's these characters called scythes that go around and essentially end people's lives. And this is the third book in the series. Can't really talk too much about it because it'd be spoilery, but super excited to read it. It's got lots of interesting themes about like where the world would go as it progresses, and I really find the characters interesting, the conflicts they have to deal with, and overall the villain in this series is really interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a very intense YA series. It's one of my favorite YA series, and you started the series a while ago, I want to say, so it's cool that you're finally going to be wrapping it up. I believe in you, and luckily there's some really good online summaries, because I utilize those quite often. I feel like it's so hard to remember stuff. If I let too much time pass between books, it's over. I have to restart the entire series. But yeah, the Arc of the Scythe is one of my favorites. I think it's just such an interesting concept, this sort of scythe culture and this sort of scythe politics that kind of surround this profession that's supposed to be so empathetic, because their literal job is to have to, kill people. But unfortunately, it doesn't always result in that reality, and you kind of see the breakdown of this world through these characters that are scythes in training. It's very intense. So, good pick. All right, the last book I have picked for Clay to read is one that I think you actually technically have started. That is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is a book I read last year, and then Clay actually started shortly after I read it because he said it sounded interesting. So I thought, let's just pick a book I already know you want to read. But this is one I also think would be really cool for you to read because we can watch the movie afterwards, and I think that could be an interesting compare and contrast. I know that's something we like to do, but I think less is more when it comes to the synopsis of this book, to be honest. I feel like it's an experience that you're supposed to just sort of fall into and unpack as you go along, but it's set in England and it follows a bunch of kids that you follow kind of grow up in this boarding school, and everything sort of unravels from there. It is very beautiful. This is my first Kazuo Ishiguro book that I've read, and I hope to read more books by him, but I think you're gonna really like this. And I'm looking forward to also watching the movie.
Yeah, I'm really excited to read this book. I've heard a lot about the movie. I know it's supposed to be heartbreaking.
Keira Knightley in it? Is that? Yeah.
Keira Knightley and I think James McAvoy. I've been wanting to read something that would hurt me.
Yeah, this is a good one for that.
I think this is going to be one. I'm ready to be hurt again. And overall, just excited to get started reading this one. It's one concept that I don't always do super well with is confusing books, and that's why I kind of lost pace with this book. Is that it's just not, everything's not explained to you right in the beginning, and I'm definitely the person that's like, am I confused because I'm supposed to be confused, or am I confused because I just don't understand? And that second latter part is often what goes, if I'm not going to get it, I'm just not going to get it. I can stop right now.
Anytime we watch a movie together, Clay, if I've already read it, he'll ask me like 27 questions about the world just to like make sure he's following.
I want to make for sure that I'm not missing something because it's because of me.
I get it. For that reason, we'll see how you feel about this because it's purposefully being very vague and how it's showing you information. But I think if you just know going into this, you're supposed to be very confused as you go along. It's everyone. It's not you. You know, it's like purposeful.
Great.
Yeah. So.
The last book I picked out for myself and the last book in this video is Beartown by Frederick Bachman, about a junior ice hockey team, I think somewhere in Canada or something like that,
really
up north.
Small town.
Really small town. They're in a championship and a violent act occurs that affects the entire community. I believe it's about like friendships, relationships, what people owe to each other. Mm-hmm. Really excited to read this one. I know it's one Reagan is actually going to be reading here soon. I'm sure she'll read it much faster before I'm moving on to this book, so very excited to get to it and very excited to just turn through it.
Yeah, this book came to mind. I don't even know because I haven't read this myself, but Clay mentioned that he wanted to read a book that had an element of sports to it. So I know this has like a hockey championship component, so that's why I like mentioned it to him. But I have read Frederick Bachman's character work, and because you wanted kind of character-led stories, I thought this would be a good one to check out too. He just writes points of views that you're really easily able to fall into, and I hear this is really emotional too. And it also, I think, has an adaptation on HBO. I think there's at least a Swedish adaptation. There's a lot of adaptations of Frederick Bachman's work just because he's like internationally very beloved, but I'm looking forward to picking up more books by him this year too. I'm going to read this, I think, literally tomorrow, and then we can talk about it. But yeah, great. No rush. Yay. Alrighty guys, those are all the books Clay hopes to read in the year 2022. We'll keep you updated. What's the first book you think you're going to pick up?
First book I'm going to read is The Toll.
Oh yeah, you're gonna
finish that series.
Wrap that series.
The first thing I'm gonna read is summaries of the first books in that series.
Thank you, Clay, for joining me on this video today, and thank you guys for watching. And I will see you soon with another video soon.
See
Bye.
you in 2027.